Today, I'm revealing 3 principles I use to lead my $1 million team in the Philippines so you can copy them into your business right now. I'm Zach, I'm the founder of Talented. We place talent from the Philippines in 7- and 8-figure e-commerce businesses. We have our own Amazon store that does $1 million a year in revenue, not profit, and I've been hiring from the Philippines since 2021. I'm making this video because I've witnessed many e-commerce founders fail with hiring overseas. They blame the VA when it doesn't work out, but it's your fault 100% of the time in some way or another. And the truth is, most of them didn't know how to lead a team. That's why I'm sharing these 3 principles so you can avoid the same mistakes I made early on. These are the exact strategies I use to lead my team from anywhere in the world. I want you to get the most out of your VA team, and one day I hope you'll work with us to find your next overseas hire. So the 3 principles we're going to cover today are document everything, full transparency, and feedback loops. Starting with document everything. Basically, my goal here is to give my team my brain. Most people are familiar with the what to do, the processes, the step-by-step, and they work great because basically anyone can follow. You don't need some sort of understanding or competence to follow these step-by-steps. You see, we have plenty of these in our Notion, but these are limited, obviously, to the very repetitive tasks, the stuff you do over and over again, which there's plenty of tasks that aren't that repetitive, which is why I focus more now on the why we do it. I want to remove myself as the bottleneck of decision-making in the company. Because there's a lot of micro decisions that are made throughout the day that don't really matter but need to be made, and I want to preserve my mental energy and my mental focus for only the major decisions, the one they're going to have a big impact, and delegate the micro out to my team. Because in a startup or just a growing business in general, the what, how we do it, changes constantly. So if I'm able to document the why and teach them the reasoning behind the decisions, they can put themselves in my shoes. Assuming you hired right, your team is capable of understanding it themselves. And in Filipino BPO culture, they're very spoon-fed stuff. That they're used to that step-by-step. So unless you really push it and make an effort to get them to start thinking the why behind it, they're not going to do it. And in my why, I'm very outcome-driven. So it's like telling them, here's where we're trying to go. Here's where we are now. What's it going to take to get there? And I walk through the decision-making process that I take, each step I'm taking to get there, to get to the final outcome. My favorite way to do this is through looms. So you'll see I have a screenshot here, some of them dating back to 2 years ago. And what's great about looms is, I'm walking through my process completing the task, but I'm live commentating it the whole time. So you capture the nuance of why I'm clicking what I'm clicking rather than just showing, do this, do this, do this. I'm saying, here's why I'm doing this. Here's what would happen if I did this. Here's why I clicked that button. And I didn't come up with this. A team member of mine did. She basically said after absorbing that information for long enough, they just kind of framed themselves with, what would Zach do here? And I think that's a great example of what happens when you document the why. They think like you do. The other way I do this is through a responsibility directory. So in a small team, like what I'm sure most of you guys have, roles are going to naturally overlap. There's not like a clear org chart of like, you handle this, you do this. It's basically just chief, get stuff done. So you need to know who's responsible for what. In the past, we used to have stuff slip through the cracks. Like we would get a customer message and we would miss the 24-hour deadline. And I'd be like, who did I assign that to? I could have sworn I told someone to handle that. Turns out I had not. So that's when I built our responsibility directory. Here's what part of it looks like. And what's cool is every couple months, we rotate a few of them. So like one person will lose some, one person will gain some. Not only does that create redundancy in if someone's out sick for the day, someone else can take care of their tasks, but everyone has their own perspectives and they might have a better way of approaching it that is more efficient or accomplishes our intended goal better. Now, once you really have this going, you can have your team document their process too, because you can't really know something unless you can teach it to someone else. So to implement this into your business, you can start by recording a loom the next time you complete a decision-based task. and commentate the whole way why you're clicking what you're clicking and share that with your team. Then you can create your own responsibility directory so it's very clearly defined who has what task. Now, I share everything with my team about the business. Most entrepreneurs are going to keep their Filipino teams in the dark about finances, metrics, strategy. They say something like, I don't want to share that info with them. And I would say the same thing until I realized I was, yet again, the bottleneck of decision making. If I want my team to make the best decisions and take ownership of those results, I need them to have the same context that I do. So the best way I do this is through key performance indicators, KPIs. So we have our individual KPIs. Each person has like 2 to 3 that are most important to their role. And we track like 50, I think, different KPIs. So they're recording those on a weekly and a monthly basis. It's great because they have a direct connection to the daily inputs and the impact it's having on our metrics. So they can see the growth over time. Then we have our team KPIs. These are so that we can create collective wins, something we can work towards together rather than competing. And then we have our company KPIs, the higher level stuff like the finances. Here's what some of our KPI sheet looks like currently. So we have some graphs to see the change over time. Then we have some weekly stuff, some monthly stuff, and a whole bunch of conditional formatting. And if you want access to our KPI template, there's a link in the description below for your Amazon business. Now, my team doesn't just record the KPIs. They know them so well, they report them to me on our monthly review meeting. So my admin, Danielle, is responsible for this meeting. She creates a PowerPoint presentation covering the most important KPIs. So she updates us on the performance month over month, and the cool one, year over year, because seasonality stuff changes month to month, but seeing the numbers grow year over year is really cool to see. And since we've been collecting this data for so long, we can really see the change over time. So once I started doing this, I noticed their decision-making process improved drastically because they understood the context of the business. Now they're able to prioritize their tasks in a day based on what's gonna move our core metrics, not just what they feel like doing or what they think is urgent. So to implement this into your business, you can start by defining the most important KPIs, building tracking systems to collect that data. Now, that sounds more complex than it actually is. Google Sheets works fine for that. And the magic happens when you connect the rewards to reaching target KPIs. So through these KPIs, you can align your team's incentives with the company's and your own. So what's going to give them success is going to give you success as well, and vice versa. And then feedback loops. Your feedback loop determines the speed and the quality of your team's growth. The goal is to create a super fast flywheel that is always spinning. Now your team, they will repeat what you reinforce. When your team only hears from you when something's wrong, feedback becomes something to fear. But when you're known for giving recognition, constructive feedback is received so much better. So I'm trying to build a foundation of recognition. I always try to find different ways, different places I can show specific and genuine appreciation for my team's work. When they're doing well, trust me, they know it. Now, in terms of tactical, some recognition systems we use, first is a daily wins channel. Everyone has access to posts in there in our Slack, and it's focused on rewarding the inputs. Then we have our live scorecard where everyone can see in our Google Sheet where they stand. And it used to be called a leaderboard, but now it's a scorecard because I want it to be focused on beating yourself, beating your performance from last week or from last month rather than competing against each other. And to go along with that, in the scorecard are team metrics. Then we have our weekly announcement. I send out one every Monday morning, and this is where I can provide some more recognition, more formal way of doing it. On top of that, there's also just simple Slack messages and on our one-on-one meetings. And then for constructive feedback. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the Filipino communication style. It's not the same as the US. Hierarchy and respect are very important to them. And in Eastern culture, like Asian culture, saving face is very important to them. So if they receive direct criticism, it can be perceived as public shame. And so they want to avoid that at all costs. This doesn't mean you can't give constructive feedback to your team. It just means you need to structure it differently. So the way I do this is by leading with curiosity, just a bunch of questions basically. So asking, what's our goal outcome here? Did we achieve that goal outcome? Okay, why do we not achieve that? What could we have done differently next time? Now, this just happened yesterday. Before, I might have said something like, you sent the wrong item to the customer. Now, I would say, okay, is this the item they were supposed to receive? Why did that happen? How can we fix our process so they always get the right item? I want to encourage them to find the root of the problem. And I want them to focus on the process rather than the person. It's not an attack on them. It's emotionless. It's fact-based. So to implement this into your business, you can start by counting your ratio of feedback to criticism. I aim for 2 to 1. So for every criticism, I have 2 things I've praised them for. Then you can create your recognition system, what that cadence looks like, so you remember to do it rather than just when you feel like it. And today, I want you to find one thing you can appreciate from a team member of yours and send them a message. Some business owners are gonna treat their VAs like task robots. Keep them in the dark and only communicate when something's wrong. And those are the same guys that eventually claim, overseas hiring sucks, you don't wanna do that. Others, maybe you if you're watching this video, take their role in leadership seriously and create exceptional teams anywhere in the world. When you have documentation that empowers your team with your decision-making framework, full transparency to create clarity and ownership of the results, and constant feedback loops to reinforce the right behaviors, you develop autonomy. When your team understands how you think, knows where the business is, and receives consistent feedback, they develop the confidence to solve problems before they reach your inbox. Now, there's one critical piece that we still haven't touched on yet, and that's how do you find and hire these exceptional team members in the first place? Ones that you can apply these principles to. Well, you're in luck. If you want my full 2-week process on hiring from the Philippines, click this video up above. I appreciate you watching the end, and I'll see you in the next video.